not Neil Orfield, but I am on the Flannelverse channel. We're going to be drafting some best ball teams tonight. So thank you all for stopping by. Always appreciated. Let's get this rolling. I'm going to jump into a BBM. Haven't actually drafted since Underdog changed their logo, so that's kind of wigging me out. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. No, Neil, I'm not mid-draft because they don't have anything in the lobby for me to like randomly rip. I don't have the mental fortitude to draft 101 little Dalmatians. So we'll see what's going on here. Need 7 for BBM. I guess I could look. Let's see what's going on in the. I'm open to drafting. I'm open to drafting this too. So, well, that needs 8. So I don't know. We'll see what comes up. So until we have a room fill. Oh wait, this one it's filling now. We're all good. It's probably some other stream that I'm about to jump in on because this is filling quickly. So we'll see who's in the room. Maybe Neil's in the room. No friends and family, but a few. Okay, this is a BBM. Good, I couldn't remember. We're at the 108. A great pick to scoop some value. Not that there's any left on the board, but we'll see what we can do. News and notes stuff. Injuries obviously kicking up across the league. Not too sure what to make. That is true. That's a good point. See, look, you're like way more on top of this. This is what happens when I don't draft for like 24 hours. I'm a shell of my former self. That's a really good point. I have never drafted the $1 ones. I'm not gonna auto them, so that would mean I'd have to do them intentionally one at a time, and that, or I mean, I guess I could probably do. How many could I multi-table if I didn't really care? I could probably do like 8 at once, I think, but my brain would feel pretty scrambled. Yeah, I just don't have it in me. I'd rather. I enjoy sweating some mid-stake stuff, so I'm gonna rip the 3 standard Dalmatian. What's up, Hartman? Hope stuff is treating you well. Hope you weren't too exposed to any of the guys who unfortunately got hurt. Why is this not showing correctly? It's being weird. Anyways. I'll try and fix that in a second. I don't want... This is my problem. I don't actually want to draft Christian McCaffrey. Well... I don't have to draft Christian McCaffrey. I don't have to do things we don't want to do. I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. Neil, you didn't want to take us on, so you got luck with you found the sweaty room instead. Though I did kind of fake you out with the leaving and the. This is strange. I don't know why it's being weird. I'll fix it for the next draft, but. Of course, I'm happy to be here, happy to be drafting a BBM. I am running dangerously low on my number of BBMs that I have remaining, so I'm going to try and be pretty intentional about the players that I'm selecting as we get here. I don't know. I feel good about being near the end. I feel like there were a lot of really solid values to be had. in the pockets where I was drafting a lot of BBMs, so I feel good about that. At the same time, I think there are still, ways that a team that's drafted in mid-late August could ship this thing. So I am not, so you don't get the best value on like a Keenan Allen or a Stephon Diggs. Like that doesn't mean that those players are going to be the guys that you need. I really wanted Genty at 17. I have no idea why he's falling. If there are things that I have regrets about not having more for right now, it's that I can't get more Ash and Genty in the mid-second, apparently. I have been wanting to get more Devin Achane, so I'm going to take him here. He, if that Dolphins offense is in any way functional, I think he's going to be really, really solid. Yeah, you might have been too slow, but I also was kind of just like jumping between that and the Dalmatian. Threw you off. Do you think week 17 is super important for game stacks? I haven't really been doing them. I try to stack teams sometimes, but I don't know. I do both. I think if I were to like talk about what I'm prioritizing beyond like just which players do I think are good, I obviously I am stacking teams. So if I have Lamb here, obviously I want to be drafting Dak a decent bit of the time, and drafting like you're right. I like game stacks. So if I have Dallas here, I do like adding Giants when I can. That being said, I'm not going to sit here and just like pull Isaiah Likely up around just to get the Giants piece in my team. So it has to make sense. It's a tiebreaker and or just a part of the decision-making process when selecting a player. And then also, I like also, even if you don't have the game stacked up, looking at who the week 17 matchup is. So even if I don't end up with any Giants in this room, I'm not going to get Malik Neighbors. He's not going to come back to me. So in the world I'm living in, it's possible Malik Neighbors scores, a touchdown in week 17, but still isn't the guy that you need. So I might not need a Giant, but I also, I'm happy to have Cowboys against the Giants. In this instance, like I'm hoping that Miami is throwing a lot of dump offs to that Devin Achane against the Bills. That doesn't necessarily mean that I need Josh Allen for that game to be a win. We are coming up on our next pick. First look that I'm having at some of these ADP adjustments that have happened today and yesterday. I was traveling this week, so I haven't really drafted since the puppy closed. So this is, seeing the Breece fall here. And my assumption with the Breece fall, he's going to come. He's going to be cheaper than he was, which makes it pretty enticing for me here. Honestly, I'm going to, I think, take him. I love Flowers. I take a ton of Zay Flowers. But I'm gonna take Breece. He wasn't going at the 3.8 very frequently earlier in the summer. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is just that, we have, let me get you on the draft board. We have a contest that's 70% filled where people who have drafted before us have gotten a lot of values. And so trying to figure out how to draft teams that are going to be competitive in that environment. And I think one of them is like Breece was usually going up on this left end of the board. I know he's a little banged up right now. I still like the bet for the year. I'm going to take him on a team with players that I probably don't have many shares of him with. And stuff that was not necessarily available, or even if it was available, wasn't often selected. Also, frankly, the running back values at the end of drafts are getting more and more inflated. And so if I can get some decent running back bets down early, it gives me some additional flexibility. I mean, we're seeing steam in pretty much all of the RB pockets. I could take another one here if I want to, but then it's going to get pretty difficult to find running backs. I don't really. Do I want a running back here? Don't particularly. I'm going to take Tet. Nice balanced 2 running back, 2 receiver start. Pretty hard for that to feel rough. Mike Washington did have another decent run. And yeah, I think it's possible that people are overreacting to that a little bit with Genty. I mean, it was a nice run. He clearly has some speed if he breaks free, but also it was some pretty poor tackling by the backup defenders on the Texans. Mike Wash is definitely going 20 picks early in this draft. I would totally believe that. Too far for sacks. Yeah, I've done that. I've done the, I've pulled guys up in the past. I think, it can work. It's not like you're, especially later in drafts, it's easier. Max Pitbull versus me. I do not take responsibility for gains and losses, but I'm happy to hear you, Max the Pitbull. That's a fun contest. I like the advanced structure in that one quite a bit. There's a lot to play for in week 17, but it's also not the 1 of 12, 1 of 14, whatever BBM is in the week 15, week 16. Great show. I try, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm just going to try and talk through my process tonight. Feeling a little tired, so hopefully I'm not too dreary on here. And yeah, Raritan hype continues. You were not wrong on the Raritan hype. I still have not clicked him, but I'm getting, maybe that's incorrect. He's getting a lot of first team looks with Drake May from what I'm seeing. And yeah, I think if you have shares, I mean, it's certainly a leverage piece, right? And he falls into the category of player that if you select him in August and he happens to randomly be a breakout tight end bet, has some big weeks down the stretch when he's able to establish himself for the Patriots, he's not a guy that's going to be highly drafted. He's not being drafted highly now, but he certainly wasn't being drafted in May and June in BBM. So guys like Raritan, Eric Hall, there are a variety of players that we can take here. We are on the clock. So, I mean, I have quite a bit of tootin', but I also am just not afraid. Okay, well, Tootin goes. I probably would have taken Tootin there. But we'll take the next best thing. We're gonna take Parker Washington. I drafted a lot of round 6 Parker Washington, but I think when you're considering, the difference between when we were getting him right here versus right here, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I want more Parker Washington based on, and honestly, the biggest report for me is not that they love the player, because we knew that they love the player, but they love his mentality. But it's just the reports that they don't want to be bringing him off the field. And so even when I was drafting him happily in the 70s earlier this summer, my assumption was he's the slot guy and he's going to be predominantly playing in 3 wide receiver sets, but maybe he's going to be target dominant in those opportunities. Seems like he's going to be playing in a lot of 2 wide receiver sets as well. Him and Lawrence have an awesome connection. So I'm happy to grab more shares of him. Could have gone Devontae there. I mean, obviously Puka's banged up. Devontae Adams is probably significantly underpriced. I think the only reason he's going this late is likely because the sour taste he left in all of our mouths last year when he was injured in the weeks that mattered. Certainly burned me. I was very overweight Devontae Adams last year. He helped carry me through the regular season. Got burned. I am underweight Devontae Adams this year, which makes me very sad. Devontae is an awesome player. He's probably my favorite fantasy player ever. And this is the first year I've been underweight. So that's kind of depressing, but live and go. We'll be all right. Okay. This is an interesting spot. I clearly want Carnell Tate here. I don't have a ton of him, but I don't feel like pulling up Warren and Ramondre. I'm pretty happy to be adding. I'm going to be looking to add maybe quarterbacks at the next turn there. So I think I'm going to just take Carnell Tate here. Get a share. I know there are folks who are a little down on Tate due to that first preseason game, but I think he's still worth taking some flyers on, but I am underweight. Brandon's fun, but it feels like it'll be a rookie year. T-Ferg, more of next year bet. I've leaned that way, but I appreciate that Hunter Henry's kind of over the hill. Tough watching Henry and Hooper in the Super Bowl. They need some younger shadings. They absolutely need some other tight ends. But they at the same time, they did just pay Hunter Henry. I would bet that he will probably be getting the majority of the snaps anyway. Hunter Henry had a really nice year last year. Am I a Luther truther? I am like even with the field on Luther Burden. So I believe in the upside, so I take shares. But I did not. I've not been getting too out over my skis. I think it's pretty wild. He is going at he went at the 3-4 turn. I didn't even notice that in this room. With the groin injury. I mean, I like Luther Burden as much as the next person. I took a decent bit of him in round 4, but the turn is a pretty aggressive. You on a flight right now? You know, I can. Do you need my soothing monotone drawl to lull you to sleep on this flight? But what's up, Emo? Hope all is well in your world. Jonathan Brooks, you know, a big play by Mr. Orfield this year, steaming up, positioning himself pretty much firmly in front. I believe he's jumped Tony Pollard in ADP. Pollard actually going pretty much where he's gone all year here. He's been falling a little bit, so we didn't see a fall. Dak going off the board before me, that really burns. Hate to see it. I don't have as much Dak as I would like in BBM. Was really hoping I could get a share here. That was one of the goals that I had in this draft. That is not going to be coming to fruition, which is a bummer. But with all of that in mind, I'm not going to let myself get buried at quarterback. I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence here, and then we'll see what we want to do on the other end of the turn. But I like Lawrence. I was unsure. Is Emo going to the UK? That's sweet. Are you doing the is that the meetup that you're on there for? I don't know if you're still in the stream from 2 minutes ago, but if you are, hope that meetup goes well. Yeah. Burden is absolutely the only guy who can rise through an injury. It's pretty incredible. Like, I credit to the Luther Burden Bulls that they are so resolute in their beliefs that they are willing to ride him to the very end and hold the line. I actually thought that was going to be the case. Like, when he originally got hurt, there were some folks talking about getting cheap Burden, and I was just like, there's just no way. Like, I mean, I expected a little bit of a fall, which just has not happened. Kyle Levin at 86 feels pretty good for that person. With him going out, Jordan Mason going really early. I've been hammering Jordan Mason and Bill Krosky-Merritt, both of those guys flying off boards. And God, this is going to get really bleak. I might just take Bill right here. He's on the cover, and I don't want RJ Harvey. We're just gonna take Bill. I'm gonna play the room here. 89 is a little high on Bill. He's my most drafted player, so second most drafted player, so I certainly don't need. Nice, man. Enjoy the hang. Hope all is well on that front. But yeah, Sanctuary puts out some awesome content for those of you in the chat who have not checked out Fantasy Sanctuary with Emo and Tom. I would definitely recommend it. I have literally, I think, one Josh Allen share. And every time I consider doing another one, I just kind of shrug and don't. So you are not alone there. He's a really tough click for me. He's significantly more expensive than all the other QBs. He goes at 38 here. Lamar goes at 58. I just can't wrap my head around the price. He obviously could drop a 30 bomb in week 17, but frankly, like, even if he does that, it's possible to win BBM without the highest scoring QB. People have done it multiple times. So usually there's a couple of QBs that spike. Love Josh Allen, the fantasy player. Think he's the clear QB1 in the NFL for this, but I have not been selecting him. So yeah, on this Bill pick, he has been going for a while now around pick 100. 89 is probably the earliest I've selected him all summer, but I honestly just playing the room there. Like, I would have probably taken Dowdle. I would have been open to Corum. I would have been open to Mason, but all of those guys went, and we really were from my perspective, going to be hung out to dry if I took one of the quote unquote wide receiver values. And so I just grabbed Bill. We'll get unique in other ways in this room to try and differentiate from teams that got cheaper Bill earlier in the summer. But we're clicking the cover boy here, and we'll see where we go from there. Interested in Golden. Yeah, I think we're gonna do Matthew Golden here. Want to have. I think there's a lot of wide receiver upside there. I haven't taken a ton of Golden thus far. I was huge on him last year. He kind of burned me. Clapping seal. Yeah, we got a donation from Emo. So Rocco and Neil, you got whatever 250 joules is. How do you build up Josh Allen? Because that's a good question. I in my home league that I am the commissioner of, one of my buddies is a Packers fan, and it has been a long running joke. His fiance is also in the league, and she loves bidding up the Packers players on him. You bid him up enough so that it hurts him, but you really don't want to get stuck holding the bag with Josh Allen when you're trying to bid your friend up. So tread carefully, but at the same time, I don't blame you there. So we are coming up on our next pick. Jacoby Myers at 110. I've been seeing him fall a lot, so it's a little more expensive than he usually is. What do I need here? We're gonna need more running backs in this room, but I don't really want to take one. I don't really want Rashad White. KC's been getting a ton of buzz. That could be fun. Go pretty wide receiver heavy. Or we could go Kittle. You know what? I'll go Kittle. I don't have enough Kittle. He's a risky player, obviously, with the injury, but I think at 113, that's pretty priced in. I like a lot of the late tight ends, but not as much as I did earlier in the summer. Some of them have had some interesting outcomes. So yeah, I'm gonna grab a George Kittle share. I also don't know what that is. I guess I'm clapping like a seal for Bill Krosky-Merritt, though. Honestly, like the slappies have kind of abandoned Bill. Like I feel like I'm slapping on my own. I showed some of my running back exposures to Emo earlier, and he said I was ETR coded, but it wasn't just running backs. So I don't know. I come from a lot of different directions with my stuff. I follow. I draft a lot of Baishal Tutin. I draft a lot of Bill Krosky-Merritt. I also draft a lot of Tony Pollard. So I'm kind of coming from all different angles, based on what I'm perceiving to be the right approach to each individual backfield. But Isaiah Likely going there at 122. When you're comparing that to Kittle at 113, I'm happy to get the kill share. Likely, if he had made it back to me and I didn't take Kittle, could have been fun. Just with the Cowboys end of it. Chris Rodriguez goes. I was kind of hoping to select Chris Rodriguez, if I'm being honest. He is, I think, a pretty good bet. Aaron Jones goes, another bet that I was kind of hoping to make. This is going to get going to make me a little more squeamish as we get in here, but I think we'll be able to find our way through this one. Woody Marks goes. Another guy getting hyped up based off of the performance that he is having currently in the preseason. I'm going to take Dalton Kincaid, a guy that I've been hoping to get more of in BBM. Happy to have two tight ends with spike potential here. And I'm going to take him there, because also in the area where I might have wanted to scoop some tight ends later, I'm likely going to need to be scooping, the remnants of the valuable running backs, because I only have three. I am happy with the three that I have. But we're going to probably want six on this team, given that we only have three solidified starters. Cyrus Allen at 132. Those of you who have been drafting more the past 2 days can let me know if that's normal. That feels pretty frothy to me. I will lose this year to just take his favorite player. Yeah, nothing wrong with trolling your friends in a home league. I think a lot of I wanted Malik Willis as well. This is, we're getting This guy needed a third quarterback, clearly, just like he needed Luther Burden at the 3-4. But such is life. I guess I will not be getting Burden, which we'll have to find our way through the quarterback scenario as well. So Debo goes. I'm going to pull up Daniel Jones here. I need a quarterback. If I don't stack him, that's fine, but I'm not really willing to let all of Darnold, Jones, Stroud, etc. go. I considered Algier there, someone I have not taken much of, but I mean, 16th round, I'm perfectly happy to click some Cyrus Allen. 11th round, go with God, our friend, into the 12 hole. I hope there's more. Honestly, I'd rather him just go in the 12th because I can get away from it. I'm question for the room. If anybody's curious, like I'm curious how everyone is approaching Rashee Rice right now. He's a guy that I have a decent clip of. I don't love some of the highlights from camp. He looks a little slow, but I also, Rashee didn't look particularly impressive ever. Good question about the Broncos backfield. Coleman just went at 144. He's someone I would have really liked to get at 152. I think I think we've talked. I think Hartman, we talked about. I believe you were in the room last week when you asked about like what was the most perplexing player on the board, and we kind of I started with RJ Harvey, and then we kind of rolled into the entirety of the Broncos backfield. Since that point, with the favorable reviews about Coleman, I'm becoming increasingly more interested in making that bet on just the cheapest guy in the backfield. It's likely to be pretty murky. I think Dobbins is still going to get a lot of juice or a lot of action if he is healthy enough to go. Obviously, we were never really expecting to see J.K. Dobbins in the preseason. And I remain incredibly perplexed by RJ Harvey. But I'm very interested in making some more stabs at Coleman. He's someone I'm basically even with the field on, so I'm perfectly happy to make a few more stabs at that. But I'm fine with taking Dobbins and Harvey and taking stabs on all three of those guys. But I would say that Coleman is the one I'm most interested in right now. I'm either going to take Marshawn Lloyd or Tyjae Spears. I'm going to take Spears. And honestly, the reason I'm going to take Spears here is that Marshawn Lloyd was incredibly cheap the entire offseason. I have shares of him in the 200s in BBM. Tyjae Spears, this is basically where he goes. And while I have more Tony Pollard drafted than I do Spears, he is getting more and more talk as potentially being a true committee. I know, I am perhaps stubbornly, I continue to be of the belief that we've heard this song and dance about it being a true split before, and it always ends up with, I would have bet basically all of my money that our friend at the 112 was going to take Lloyd, and I probably could have also guessed Harris. This guy is all into all the steamed players. Not necessarily a bad thing, but that is what is occurring. So would have bet everything that Marshawn Lloyd was coming off the board there. But yeah, the news on Spears has been pretty good. So I'm happy to take a share here, hedge my bets on Tony Pollard and get him at basically the price he's been at all year. The other plus side of taking Spears, assuming this doesn't go south here, we'll see what this guy does, but is that I can take Cam Ward as my third QB, and I have him double stacked. So I don't exactly love what we've seen from Ward. That offense could be pretty murky, but I am willing to take. Mahomes is due for a bounce back. If Rice is healthy, he should be a top 8 receiver. Yeah, I drafted a good bit of Mahomes and I drafted a good bit of Rice, so I hope that's the case. Slightly underweight on Kashy, mostly worried that Walker takes away some of the short area passing. Cyrus Allen should be a real player, but not over-indexing him. Yeah, I agree. I do have some concern, like the yards per route run numbers and all that stuff have been awesome on Rashid, like the entire time he's been in the NFL. Every time he's been healthy, he has scored points, but a lot of it has been manufactured. And if Andy Reid / Eric Bieniemy take the offense in a different direction, that could possibly not go as well. Not really worried about Rashid. Mahomes over targets him when they play together. Don't see a reason why that would change. Yeah, I mean, they still have Kelsey is still old. Worthy and I mean, it's part of the reason that Cyrus Allen has some juice is that there's not much going on there, but they're still going to probably default to giving Rashid the ball. And welcome aboard. Appreciate you stopping by. Let's see what we got here. So we are in need of, it's a 3-4-5-2. Probably going to be looking at a 3-6-7-2. If I had to guess, but I'm flexible. But that feels Malik Washington going off the board at 171. That actually doesn't even feel that bad. I haven't taken a ton of Washington. I am very high on Ashton Genty, but Washington, showing some spike. She's always some big play potential, which really is what you want to see from a back that's touches are likely to be limited. And if he as a pure handcuff, he has some value for sure. Yeah. Where do we want to go from here? Probably don't need a receiver just yet, which probably means we want to go running back. The running backs are also going to just absolutely evaporate soon, if not this turn and the next. I have some ideas about what I want to do with that position. I was pretty high. So I was pretty high on Jaden Blue for a while, but I'm becoming slightly more bearish based on just reports that he hasn't been able to differentiate himself. So I'm gonna take Dylan Sampson. We have some nagging injuries for Quinshawn that have kept him out of practice. Not to say that I'm going to be overly concerned about that, but it certainly makes Sampson a slightly more appealing pick. Also, what the quote from Brown's training camp was that they were doing check down city back there with Shadur. That sounds like a zone that Dylan Sampson could thrive in. And to get him at ADP, he's basically been at this price all summer. Feels pretty healthy to me. So I'm happy to get a share of Dylan Sampson. I think he's likely to score some points. I feel pretty good about where this team is going. We're likely going to want another running back, I think, at this turn. I really wanted Emma Johnson, so that's a genuine bummer. And now I don't like any of these guys, so we're gonna pass on that. Maybe we go Washington if I don't come up with another pick in time. Yeah, I mean we can take a second. I think we can take a second Dolphins player. I don't love it, but I think that's a fine bet. Didn't want to take a tight end. I suppose I could have pulled up my RB of choice. I have some guys in mind, but I'm fine with taking Malik Washington. I think he's going to play a lot, so I'll take that. I would have considered Braylon Allen, but we have Brees on the squad, so I wasn't going to make that bet here. But he's definitely a guy that I would have been open to. Did I not? Yeah. I mean, we've been burned by a big variety of hyped Kansas City Chiefs players, so I'm not gonna get too out over my skis on Cyrus Allen. I will say, he wasn't drafted the entire summer, so if he is a hit, especially in something like BBM, this is probably, if I was going to get my shares, this is the place where I'd certainly want to do that. Love the Sadiq pick at 194 for the guy in the 2-hole. They're saying he's going to potentially be back for week 1. Caleb Black is who I would have selected if I had pulled up a running back before, which is now going to leave us having to make a different bet. Or we take a receiver. Calvin Ridley is cool. Do I want to triple? I don't know if I want to triple stack Titans though. That seems silly. Bernard is someone I would have considered as well. Let's take Jalen Noel here. I don't know what the Texans are going to do. I was taking a good bit of Tank Dell. I get that the Tank Dell Bears are out in full force right now. I still think that he could be a decent pick this year to come on late. Demontis Walker's interesting. I'm curious what is making you high on Walker. Do you like him just because you think making a bet on a Ravens receiver here is good, or do you actually like him more than Bateman, Jacoby Lane, Elijah Surratt? Out of curiosity, I have not selected Demontis Walker. I have selected a lot of Rashad Bateman, and I have selected recently a decent clip of everyone's favorite flavor of the week, Jacoby Lane. So I'm going to make my last pick here shortly, and then I'm going to recap the team. Pretty happy with how this one's gone, all things considered. I think, BBM is tough right now when you're thinking about all of the teams that have come before you and trying to figure out how you can differentiate. But I'm going to consider Claiborne here. I think that's an interesting option. I'm going to consider Jordan James here. I'm going to consider, I guess, Kamani Vidal. I don't really like Vidal, but I don't love Claiborne, but in this situation, it's probably him or James. I don't know, fractured ribs. Some just complete. What am I going to be more mad at? I'm going to take Jordan James. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I will not be selecting Brandon Ayuk. That is not. He is not in my player pool. Jordan James, fractured ribs. I don't know if it's him or Black, but if CMC does get injured, we know that the San Francisco backfield will still be producing points, and so I don't have many stabs on James or Kalen Black in BBM, but I probably should take a couple. So in a spot where I didn't know what to do, I'm going to take the swing there. All right, so let's recap the team. I think that, it could be, one, we don't expect him to be valuable in week one anyway. So I'm just hoping he gets back and gets right by the time that there's potentially a CMC injury. Kalen Black is already playing again, I think. So he would be my preference between the two, I guess. But I think they're both fine stabs to take. Likely not going to score a ton of points, but we used to pay up a lot higher for the CMC handcuff, and the ambiguity right now that still exists is keeping both of their prices suppressed. So I don't want to take a ton of these guys, but I think I'd be pretty mad at myself if we do end up with a CMC injury and I don't have any shares in a contest where it could really pay off, especially when for a lot of the summer, neither of those guys are being drafted. So, all right, let's take a look at the team. We have Trevor Lawrence stacked with Parker Washington, Daniel Jones unstacked. Not really too worried about that. I was considering grabbing another Keenan Allen share, but I have a lot in the last round and wasn't too pressed about it. And then Cam Ward, we do have the double stack with Tyjae Spears and Carnell Tate. Running back room, got double anchor with HM and Maurice Hall. Reached a little bit for our guy, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I am a huge Bill bag holder this season. I was drafting Bill and Rachaad White at basically an equal clip for the first chunk of the season, but ever since the talk has been firmly about Bill as the 1A, I have gone full throttle. So he is my second most drafted player, and I am more than happy to add more shares. Pray for Bill's health. I got a lot invested in that guy. Tyjae Spears, happy to get another share if there is going to be a true split backfield there, as I said, and then Sampson and Jordan James. Sampson, I think, gives us more consistent production in sort of a satellite role, and then Jordan James, a handcuff that I'm happy to have, gives us some RB upside if CMC were to go down. I think this receiver room is pretty damn strong. CeeDee Lamb, Ted McMillan, Parker Washington, Carnell Tate, really strong top four. Matthew Golden looking like he's going to be playing in 2 wide receiver sets for the Packers. Malik Washington could end up the highest scoring Dolphins receiver this year. I think some combination of him, Caleb Douglas, and Chris Bell will be seeing the field the most by the end of the year. With, I guess, some slight chances that Jalen Tolbert is involved, but I think Washington is more likely to be involved of the quote unquote veterans. And then Jalen Noel, I think getting him at 200 is a really good value when we're considering the injuries the Texans have had. He was a guy that I was dabbling in a little bit at the beginning of the year, pumped the brakes on. And then now, in a world where all these receivers are getting steamed up really high, I'm perfectly happy to grab a share at 200. And then Kittle and Kincaid. Kittle might start slow, but I'm happy to have Dalton Kincaid. And I think that tight end room gives me some upside where one of those guys could be hitting my flex towards the end of the year. So I think this team's pretty damn strong. No complaints on my end. Not my favorite BBM, but pretty happy with this one. I will be jumping into another draft momentarily. If you would like to join me. Substation in full effect. Hesitant to pick Evans, but he's just so damn good, especially week 15 to 17. He just turns it on chasing that 1,000 yards. Yeah, I think he is a guy who and I don't want to steal this, but someone at some point this summer, and if anyone knows who it was, or if the person who knows who it was happens to see this, I'm sorry I can't credit you. But I think somebody said that like Mike Evans is going to be the most obvious outcome ever, where either he smashes as a wide receiver 1, and we should have seen it coming in the Shanahan offense because he's awesome, or we have or he gets hurt and we probably should have seen that coming as well. How's it going, man? Appreciate you all. Please do hit the like button. If not for my benefit, if for Neil's, Neil is putting out some awesome content, as I've said, every stream. His weekly podcasts are fantastic. He's brought on great guests. They're talking about stuff that matters in the best ball season. I would believe that was Ryan. I think was he on? It might have been even on your show. I don't recall. But that. Thank you, Neil, for no. I consume so much goddamn best ball content that sometimes things that I pick up anecdotally, I can't always place them. Yeah, if you have any thoughts on Naylor, definitely interested in hearing them. And yeah, Vikings fan, former Vikings wide receivers got skills. So Shefty's still steaming up Kittle for week 1. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I am happy to get another. And I'm going to try and switch this real quick. Watch out, everybody. I'm going to try and get us. Let me just try and get Underdog where it's showing my picks happening while I have it up, so I don't have to keep changing streams. So I'm going into BBM now. So if anybody wants to join me, we are waiting on 7. And then I will get this shared. Where is my StreamYard? Share screen, share Chrome tab, share. I think this will work better. We are full in, so maybe we have a friends and family going, maybe we do not. We do have player Q in there. We have Jim W in there as well, the other Jim W, my constant nemesis. Got some no badges, which is nice. We're not. And then I believe one of you is in here who does not have a badge. If I'm remembering right, but I can't remember who it is. Seventh spot. Yeah, there you are, my friend. Good luck in this one. Yeah, Neil. I don't know why am I. Somebody can explain to me why in my last couple of BBMs I'm drafting them on stream with smart people. That seems suboptimal. But hopefully, we have some crazy folks in this room, and we are able to get some value. All right, and we are off to the races. And I did get it fixed, so now you can all see my draft board. I need it. Wait, we can make this bigger. There we go. We'll make that bigger. And I'm happy to talk through your draft in the 7 as we go. If anybody else is in the room, you are. That might be correct. I might have been something I saw on Twitter. And I kind of agree with it. And I'm underweight on Mike Evans, and I don't feel particularly good about it. Neil, let me see if I assume you made that switch. Let me see if I can get myself. There we go. We are back. Let me get me firmly in frame. I'm going to work on one of my priorities. My office just looks like I just moved in here, and I've lived in this house for quite a while. I need to get some cool sports stuff behind me. I have some stuff that I'd like to hang on the wall to get the little bit of a better background. So let's see how this draft unfolds, though. In the 7 hole, our friend of the channel and the Flannelverse Discord, Jim W, is on the clock, and he takes Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is probably what I would have done in the 7. So hard for me to judge. I'm on the clock. CMC goes. I just did a CD Lamb team, and I don't really care. I'm just going to do another one. I didn't get Dak last time, so I'm going to try and get Dak this time, And if I don't, then I'll try again. Feeling pretty good about Lamb right now. Yeah, I try. Here we go. We're back in action. I settled myself in. Neil, thank you as always for the production assistance. Henry goes. I would have loved Henry, so that's kind of a bummer for me. We're gonna have to do something else here, but I don't know what that's gonna be yet. Walker. There's another guy that I wanted to select. Oh, man. I don't have. I'm going to take Morgan Hampton. I don't know. I don't know what FUD to believe. I'm like debating between those 3 running backs. I didn't want to take Achane again. And I don't love Chase Brown as much as a lot of the other folks in the community. I would love to know which 4 teams Jalen Naylor is the number 1 on, because he is. I'm not even sure he's the number 1 on his team, and his team, he might not be the number 1 there. I don't know. But I appreciate, hearing some bullish stuff on Naylor. I like him all right. I'm a little above even with the field, I believe. So would not mind him having a breakout season as the wide receiver 1 on the Raiders. I do sort of buy into the idea that they selected him or they paid him for a reason. But we will see. We get going on. Friend in the 7 hole got Chase Brown. I don't mind. Yeah. Where are we? And yes, this is true. The Cowboys don't ever take their foot off the gas. I've been underexposed to Dak just because of how, I feel so. I don't really feel the incentive to take him when I don't have Lamb or Pickens. When you draft Pickens, it requires reaching for him. When I draft Lamb a decent clip, but then I also don't want to have Dak on all of my Lamb teams. So it becomes difficult for me to get overweight on Dak when he's a guy that I really like. Of course, now I say all this, and the 2-hole will probably take Dak, but I do like Dak a lot. And he's a guy that I want to be making some bets on. Hampton apparently looks awesome at practice. I am, where am I at on Hampton? I don't even know. I am at 6.5%. I'm at 6.5% Hampton. So he's not a fade, but he's also, and now I just took another share, which will put that up over 7% for BBM. So, like 7%. So I'm 7% Hampton at BBM. It's not a fade, but it's also not a guy that I'm slamming the button for. And so I'm happy to take a share here. There are a couple of guys that I really want. Zay Flowers was one of them. The other one was absolutely Jeremiah Love. I don't care, man. I'm really, I get that it's scary to take him with the injury. I understand that. And thanks, Neil. I wasn't fitting in the frame as well. We'll move the camera after this. I can find my way into that one. But I just can't in a contest like BBM. I'm going to be willing to bet on Jeremiah Love with player combinations that I don't have him with yet. Similar bet to the one that I made with Brees. Though Brees was more so falling to the side of the board. And the other thing with Brees, look, Brees went at the 303 in the other draft, right? Like, there's not going to be that many teams in BBM that are getting Brees on the right side of the board. I'm going to take some shares. And Jeremiah Love, I'm going to take him at 33. I'm not scared. If all Jeremiah Love needs to do is destroy the Raiders in Week 17 for me to win all the money, then I'm willing to make a bet on that. I'll find a way to make some stability happen in my running back room before, to make things work. I don't have enough Garrett Wilson, and so I'm absolutely going to take him here. Wilson is a guy that earlier in Hampton is solid. Yeah. I mean, I like Omarion Hampton, the player. I do have some concerns about, their willingness to maybe use Keaton Mitchell, their willingness to maybe use Kamani Vidal in pure passing situations where they value his pass protection. But I also think, if Hampton really looks good, then Mike McDaniel is gonna feed him. So I don't want to be completely out on him. I think that's a really good offense. I think he's going to get basically all of the goal line carries. And so I would be I don't want to fade a guy who I think can score 20 touchdowns. And I think he can do that. Although I do fade Javonte Williams, and I guess hypothetically he can do that too. So, I mean, speaking out of both sides of my mouth with that one. But I like that bet. And then Garrett Wilson, as I was saying, I was a little lower than the field on Garrett Wilson early because I thought with the additions of Omar Cooper and Kenyon Sadiq that there would be more target competition than he's ever experienced before. I thought those guys seemed pretty talented. With the Sadiq injury, with the bearish reports on Cooper, not that I'm completely out on those guys, and I think they're fine at their very cheap prices, and I'm still willing to buy them. But it makes me more bullish on Garrett Wilson just being the absolute alpha in that room again. Jim W. taking Colston Loveland, another of my favorites. I love Flowers. To give Jim's team some props. He's got somebody earlier was talking about Week 17 correlation. Jim's done a really nice job, I think, here of getting correlation with Amon-Ra and Loveland and Chase Brown and Zay in 2 different Week 17 matchups without reaching, right? So, these are guys that you're getting at good values who are not, constantly paired together because Loveland kind of goes all the way up and down this board. Zay sometimes goes earlier than this. Chase Brown sometimes goes earlier than this. But a really nice, naturally correlated team. So it's a good stuff. I'm a fan of the way that you started that draft. got to get their first higher. Ankles can be tricky, especially when they know they're bad and more Algier's more than capable. Yeah, I mean, you do need to get there first, right? And I'm not saying that I'm going to go out and jam Jeremiah Love in all of my drafts, but I'm also trying to beat hundreds of thousands of teams here, and you got to find it somewhere. So I'm willing in BBM especially to take the Jeremiah Love fall, more so than maybe I would be in a different environment. We were just talking about Mike Evans. I don't know why Mike Evans is available at 57, so I'm just going to take him there. Thank you. Talk about things that were not available earlier in the summer. How do you beat a team that's already been drafted? Big Mike was not going at 57. Jeremiah Love was not really going at 33, except for like that first week when he was kind of sitting in the third round and everybody was going crazy on him, and then he got himself closer to the turn. But 33 was pretty rare, I would say, for Love throughout the competition. And Mike Evans at 57 feels like a smash. So I feeling really good about how this team has started. And I like some of the options that I have coming back to me, depending on what happens at the next two picks. Laporta at 62 is interesting. D-Snacks, I don't know if you're in the room, but I would love to hear about the Laporta selection on the day that he is that people are talking about him getting injured. Yeah, on that same note about things that have not been available, I'm just gonna smash the Travion button at 64. I am higher on Ramondre than I am on Henderson, and from an exposure standpoint. I have a lot of Ramondre and I don't have much Henderson. But again, how do I make this team different? I think Travion, Mike Evans, these are guys. Travion was going at the 4 or 5 turn. Mike Evans was going in round 4 for most of the draft cycle. Some really nice, and I'm struggle to say ADP value. Maybe 64 is an appropriate price point for Travion, and he's been overpriced the entire time. But then if that's the case, then I just have one of the more appropriately priced Travion Henderson shares in BBM. Neil, I'm seeing starting 3 wide receivers, getting 2 sturdy running backs to follow, and then getting Drake May. I mean, love to see it. Another good thing, you look at talking about player combos. I know Neil and I were both drafting a lot of round 3 AJ Brown. When that was happening, Rashee Rice was usually a round 2 pick. So you're kind of just awash with the early teams there. Josh Jacobs was a 2-3 turn pick. So I kind of love Josh Jacobs in the 4th when you pair him with 2nd round AJ Brown, because then you're pretty safe from those early teams if those end up being guys that you want to have. So I like what a lot of the Flannelverse faithful are doing. I like the Jarian Price pick as well. Obviously love Lamar. So I think, honestly, and I mean this candidly, I think Jim and Neil are both crushing this draft. But I am also pretty happy with how mine is going. Love the Chris Godwin pick at 76. Honestly, that is not one of those two, but I'm a big Chris Godwin bull this year. So that's, yeah. I agree with you. I like Stevenson more. That's why I have more, but I am not going to be afraid. Stevenson or Henderson can still pop for a lot of points if he has an explosive run. Is it really? I mean, if AJ Brown is going in the 3rd now, I'm just going to draft more. I am perfectly happy. I haven't seen him fall to the 3rd yet. I guess I would call that exciting. I'm going to take Dak 100% of the time here. AJ Brown. It is baffling to me that he would fall to the 3rd. I mean, he wanted to pick 20 here. Are you seeing, Neil? Are you seeing that on Underdog? Or are you seeing that elsewhere? I haven't seen him fall I'm sure there's some variance. I haven't seen him fall into round 3 at all. That's wild. I will make the clicks. If anything, that's now I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Nice. That's awesome. I will be like Underdog. I certainly don't think the ADP is going to get there. But yeah, there's always variance in the rooms. What do I want here? I don't know. I think I wanted Tony Pollard. Tucker Kraft is fun. Let's go Blake Corum. It's going to be a weird running back room. I don't know how we're going to get there, but we're going to try and get there with one of the weirder running back rooms that I've drafted. I can tell you I definitely don't have this combo of 4 running backs on any other team I've drafted this summer. Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, AJ Brown's. Yeah, I was even thinking that I just haven't been taking him enough in the second round, and I've kind of rested on my laurels with my early shares of AJ, and so I'm down to 14. I'm down to 15% overall. Still a little higher than that in BBM, but I was worried that I've been resting on my laurels a bit much with my AJ Brown shares, and was thinking I needed to pay up and get some more. So yeah, I don't know what to say to that, but I will. It's a little discouraging in that I was hoping that my shares of Gibbs, AJ Brown would be time box limited in BBM today, but we'll just assume it's going to be a minority. Neil with the Jordan Mason pick. I love Stephon Diggs as much as the next person. Was taking a ton of him at his cheaper prices. Jordan Mason, I think, is a pretty sweet pick here for Neil. I also like what Neil did with the double elite QBs when he got the fall in Daniels. What are you even giving up there? Round 7 is so bad that I have done this a couple of times when I've had a faller, and why not just take the other awesome quarterback and let the chips fall? I'm perfectly happy. You've got your 3 elite receivers. You've got 3 presumed starting running backs. I do have some time for still your stack. Oh yeah, he got you. I'm anticipating that some guys that I like are not going to be making it back to me, unfortunately, at 105. Might have to just go Matthew Golden again. But such is life. Golden's cool. Addison's cool. I don't know. I'm curious. Neil, do you have a gauge on where you're willing to click Jordan Tyson at this point? In specifically in BBMs, are you taking him? If you don't want to tell me while we're in the room together, that's fine too. But we keep Matthew Golden in the queue. That's fair. Oh, this is just silly. This is happening. Now, running back room, signed, sealed, delivered. We are on a high, getting our guy Bill. The bags, you think the bags are packed, and then you get another share. So this running back room is awesome. I'm having a lot of fun with this one. I do like Golden. Shame to see him go. But we can probably just take a quarterback here and figure it out as we go. Or we could also go Kittle again, but I don't know if I want 2 guys from that backfield. I kind of wanted Bo Nix. kind of wanted Bo Nix, but we're going to take Casey Concepcion in this one. So wide receiver 4. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was not highlighting your messages, but I absolutely wanted Concepcion at that pick. I think he was an absolute smash. So I'm thrilled to have. I'm thrilled with how that sequence of picks went with Bill in the 9th and Concepcion in the 10th. I don't blame you for being tempted to do that because I think that Bill should be drafted in front of Harvey. And it's not to say that I don't get. Yeah, I know his name is Kevin. Yeah, I mean, he is Kevin. He is Kevin Concepcion. Crush draft. Yeah, I mean, do I use that phrase a lot? Maybe I do. I don't know. I think I'm thrilled with this one so far, though. Oh, wait, his name? Oh yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I think he looks really good. And honestly, if their offense is kind of broken, that probably plays to his advantage because he's going to be a guy who gets manufactured touches, and they're going to be pretty desperate to get some things going. So I'm a fan. Neil, are you do you have Harvey and Bill ranked fairly close together in your mind, or are you firmly were you just gonna mess with me a bit? That's possible, but I think Concepcion can score whoever the quarterback is just because they're going to give him some manufactured looks. But I mean, I think he's I get Harvey also has really good upside. I just wanted him on the team. Yeah, he is correlated. Yeah, I do a lot of Bill with Jaden. I think that stack makes sense for sure. I think he's pretty good. I liked him a lot. I'm not going to sit here and call myself like a film bro or anything, but I do follow the draft and read a bunch of, profiles on players and try and formulate opinions on who I want the Ravens to take. Cause I'm first and foremost a Ravens fan. And I really liked him as a potential guy that maybe if we traded down a little bit, that the Ravens could have targeted. I think there's a little bit of overlap with Zay, so I understand why they wouldn't have done that. But I really liked the profile. I know a lot of the underlying analytics. Tank Dell at the 12-1 is really something. There have been some bearish reports. I'm happy to have the Dell shares that I do have because I do think there's some upside there, but that is that's really something. I think this is going to be Jake Ferguson for the double stack with Dak. I think that's fine. At 136, I don't think that's the worst pick on the board. I know some people are but I don't I don't think Ferguson, I'm not as bearish on Ferguson as some of the other folks, though I don't draft him a ton. I do get the idea that if Flournoy has a better season, it's likely at his expense, but I also just think that's not as big of a concern in best ball, especially if they just spread the ball around. I'm happy to have, but I would say I'm a much higher percentage chance to draft Ferguson on a DAC team. I'm not nearly as interested in him without. So I get some of the Bears takes on him, but I also think there's some value to it. Pretty happy with how this one's going. Debo, I think 138 is a pretty good price on that at this point. Coleman, as we saw, has been rising up the boards. Neil takes Algier, so he's Neil directly betting against us. I also like the Chris Rodriguez bet, Neil at 125. I think you did a nice job building out a running back room after starting 3 wide receivers. And I meant to check and see where our guy Tyson came off the board. He came off at 106. So yeah, I'm going to be monitoring that. I think he has a little bit more to fall beyond 106. I mean, Rashad Bateman is my most drafted player in best ball. So from your lips to the people rigging the game's ears. Oh yeah, I mean, if you like, my algorithm gives me Rashad Bateman content, and the one today's Jeff Zrebeck was quoting Bateman, and he basically was saying that like the Ravens before did not have coaches that were focused on details, and that it is nice to have coaches that are focused on that now. I really wanted Trey Harris. That's a gut punch. Shoot. You know, we were talking about Jalen Naylor earlier. Let's take a Jalen Naylor share. That's fine. I don't know if I love it. I don't know if it was the right decision, but we'll take Jalen Naylor here. I think he's pretty in line with the other options that we had available to us. I think Keon Coleman, okay, this got firmly in his bag at the 12 hole. True get your guys seasons with Tank Dell and Keon. I'm pretty sure I know who I want. Although I probably shouldn't even do that. I should probably do this other thing. Which steamed up player do I want to draft? Do I want to draft Terrence Ferguson? No. Do I want to draft? But I think I do want to draft Terrence Ferguson. Or do I want Dalton Schultz, who's like probably pretty likely to score some points? I'm going to go Terrence Ferguson. Scared money don't make none. I need some upside. And the reports are pretty bullish, so we'll go with that. Yeah, I'm sorry Neil keeps stealing your running backs. Hopefully I hope you take more running backs because I don't need any more. I like Debo to cause consensus ADPs, always predict linear upward or downward trends in production, but a lot more of it. Yeah, that's an expensive potential zero for 9 weeks. I am more interested in him, not to beat a dead horse, but like we're 70% full for BBM, and so the first 70% of the Jordan Tyson shares have been very expensive in this on this contest. So I do have some interest in, can I get a cheap share or two of Jordan Tyson and just see, just in case he is a guy who explodes down the stretch. But I do not. But yeah, I mean, he could be a real low advance rate piece. Draft Naylor last. I got Naylor. I got him when he was available. Yeah, I mean, Mark, I think like the touchdown upside is pretty high with Andrews, which is good. However, as is the potential that he's more and more washed by the year. I do anticipate more targets for the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 of the Ravens than we've seen in years past. So I'm anticipating more of that, more 11 personnel under Declan Doyle, and all these fun receivers are going now. This is miserable. There's still a couple of guys, but this is just not what we wanted on that front. But life goes. Neal buying Keenan Allen. I will say I like how the structure of these teams, where I'm taking at least 2 of the earliest receivers, is going. I love the Sadiq pick there. I was hoping to get him. That is frustrating. As is AD Mitchell coming off the board. I'm just going to take Caleb Douglas. I know it's early, but he's a guy that wasn't drafted a large percentage of the time. And I have the stack with Malik Willis. So I'm going to take that pick. Noel going at 179. That's probably more in the range where he should be going. So again, very stoked to get him at pick 200. Yeah, that's pretty wild. They claim it was in a joint practice, but I don't know. It might have been. Yeah, appreciate that. Make opinion. Thought you could. Well, I'll address Niels in a second. I need a tight end here. I don't really want Dulcich. I don't think. I think I want Pat Freiermuth. So I'm just going to take Pat Freiermuth as my third tight end. Pretty big Freiermuth bull. That was mega painful. I thought I could push and get one of Hunter Henry or Schultz because all the no batters had 2 tight ends already. So close. Yeah, how close did you get to that? Yeah, they took 3. I mean, it gets murky. I mean, they really start coming off the board. I was hoping to get Sadiq in the 180s. So I pushed that a little bit. Also, I like the Omar Cooper bet at 186 from Jim. I understand that he has not looked the way that they would like in camp, and that it's going to be a much slower ramp up. If there is a ramp up, than we would have anticipated when people were drafting him, when I was drafting him in the 140s. But at the same time, the Jets are likely to not be particularly competitive, and I think it would be a really poor decision to not try and get your first round picks on the field by year end, the weeks that matter for us. It would just maybe Aaron Glenn gets fired and the new coach that's brought in is just that they're just prerogative from the front office is like, you need to showcase the guys that we drafted because we need to know what we have in those players. Like, I think the last thing you would want to do is go into next season and be like, we don't even know what we have in Omar Cooper or Kenyon Sadiq. Not that everybody has like an amazing rookie year, but like, I think they should both pretty obviously be running routes for the New York Jets in week 17. And if they aren't, there is a pretty big problem with the process there. But then again, I guess betting on competence from that organization is probably a poor decision. So let's see here. We are at appreciate you all coming in again. I know we have a handful in chat with us now. Obviously, very appreciated. Neil, nice value in Dulcich. That's could be worse for your second tight ends, given how long you pushed it. I am undecided if I'm going to rip another draft. It could go either way. I would have really liked Malachi Fields. I think that would have been a fun bring back on my stuff with. I think this is a 2583. Though I could take another quarterback. I can't believe Bryce Young is still available. I mean, I don't have any reason to take Bryce Young, but that's pretty wild. I don't think I need 8 receivers here, so I think I am just going to take Aaron Rodgers. Willis has non-zero bench risk. I have Freiermuth, and to get him at 201 feels pretty good. So I'm just going to take Aaron Rodgers here. I was fine leaving it at Prescott Willis, but I'm not going to complain about a big fall for Aaron Rodgers when I have him stacked. And then we'll look for our final receiver as we get through here. I think Vele is fine. I think Jeremy is fine as another stack. I think Chris Bell is fine. I think that there's not much else that's fine. Jerry Jeudy is probably fine. I don't really want Jerry Jeudy on a team where I selected Casey Concepcion, I don't think. But I think in round 18, he is certainly a fine, justifiable click that is likely to score points. I don't think I want to bet on. Do I want to bet on both Miami rookies? What's really the difference? I'm going to bet on both Miami rookies. Let's take. I definitely have not done that in any room. Chris Bell has not been drafted for a lot of the summer because of the injury, but if he's going to play, I don't mind having another Chris Bell share. Hopefully, one of these guys really breaks out with Malik Willis. But I could have easily just taken the young Mr. Bernard there. Andrew likes the Bell pick. Glad to see it. Do I want to draft? So I'm going to review my team. I'm also going to review Neil and Jim's team, and then I'm gonna suss out if there is a Dalmatian that's going to run, because I kind of want to draft one, and it was not going to fill earlier. So let's see. Actually, I'll click into it and see if it's going to fill, and then I will. So I'm going to try and enter one of those now. I don't know if any of you want to draft one of those. Probably not, but okay. We are waiting on 3, so I am going to draft a Dalmatian because it's going to fire. So we're gonna stream a bit longer. If anybody wants to stick around, and watch me draft the Dalmatian 2, I'm going to be doing one of those to close things up. Looking at my team, we have Dak Prescott, Malik Willis, and Aaron Rodgers. I was able to land Dak this time after losing him last time. Really like this running back room. I think it's one of the more unique ones I put together recently. Maureen Hampton, Jeremiah Love, Travion Henderson, Blake Corum, and Corey Krosky-Merritt. I'm a pretty big fan of what we were able to do there. I've said that a couple of times now. CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Casey Concepcion, Jalen Naylor, Caleb Douglas, and Chris Bell. I like the Naylor pick a little bit more, knowing now that I took those 2 Miami guys. But I think if I could turn back the clock, I might have taken, I don't know, Pat Bryant or Jacoby Lane or somebody a bit more frothy. And then I like the Jake Ferguson, Terrence Ferguson, Pat Freiermuth, Triple F. Neil, now you're just like, you're gonna like throw salt in the wound that you're gonna one beat me in the draft and 2 walk a dog simultaneously. So, at least it's 4 of 12 advance. So if any of the friends and family jump into the Dalmatian draft, there's a greater chance that we will make it out than we usually do. So I'll go over the contest specs when we get there. Neil's team, Jim's team, which I was a fan of, Lamar and Jared Goff. So doing the Ravens thing, which I love. Chase Brown, Jadarian Price, Keaton Mitchell, Tank Bigsby, Tyron Tracy, and Pacheco. I'm not a big Tracy guy or a big Pacheco guy, but you did get pretty big values there. And if Pacheco is the RB2 in Detroit, that's going to be a pretty damn good price. Though the injury is concerning with him, obviously. And Tracy, I don't know what to make of it with Najee entering the fold, but I like the first 4 running backs. And I think in terms of putting a room together, you got decent values on those guys. Really strong wide receiver room. Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, Devon Diggs. Addison at 103 is great. I think that's a fine price on Debo. A little more expensive than he was earlier in the offseason, but you kind of counterbalance that by getting a very cheap Omar Cooper share. So don't mind that at all. And then Loveland Hockenson and Eric All's a guy I've been considering clicking more of. So hats off to you for getting him as another bring back along with Chase Brown. Sheila Lamar stuff, and then Neil, Drake May, Daniels, and Geno. You did have Geno stacked, so I get going there. At 212, it's hard to argue with a QB that's going to be playing. Jacobs, Montgomery, Mason, Harvey, Rodriguez, Algier, really strong running back room. JSN, AJ Brown, and Rasheed, really strong first 3 wide receivers. Hunter, Neil, I know you're walking your dog, but whenever you do come back, I'd love to hear if you have any thoughts on the Travis Hunter bet as he's been playing more and more defense in their inter-team scrimmages. Keenan Allen and Adonai Mitchell, I think, maybe a little light for 6 wide receivers, but then again, your top 3 going to be target monsters. But, I think it's a pretty solid receiver room. Little light to go through, but I don't mind the Geno Smith pick if you don't like any of the receivers at the end of the draft. And then Kittle with Otten and Dulcich, pretty good values on those last 2 guys. They're pretty cheap, but hard to hate on those picks. And then Kittle at 116, I kind of made the case for him for the draft before. So I like what Neil did here. I think you're a lot of times going to be getting 3 wide receivers up top and getting a flex out of this running back room. But in the times that you don't, I think those other 3 receivers have some pretty good upside. Okay, so we have – is Neil in this draft? Neil is in this draft, drafting right next to us, so that can only go well. It's going to take all of my guys. I know Michael Moisen is someone I see on Twitter quite a bit. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with any of these other folks. But yeah, should be a tough room. I mean, and then it's one thing to – I do not have a video of the Pitbull team. I'm happy to pull it up. I can probably find it. I have a screenshot of it, so I can pull that up once we get going. But I'm also going to be trying to be fairly locked in on this room, given that it is a higher stakes draft. So maybe I'll do for the Pitbull. I will bring it up after the draft. I was hoping Puka would fall to me. He has fallen sometimes. I think JSN is probably the most stable pick here. I'm just going to take him. But I'm happy to bring the Pitbull team up after this draft. If you do want to shoot me a reminder whenever the draft ends, I'm happy to pull it up. Because it is an interesting team. I think there's some cool, beyond the fact that it gives me the warm fuzzies to look at it because the team made me cash. I've got it, so I'm happy to pull it up once this is over. Neil going with Amon-Ra, so I was almost tempted to consider Amon-Ra there as well. I I like Amon-Ra a fair bit, but JSN is a cool pick. I think I usually just take him at the 105 without really thinking about it. Prior to the tightness reports with CMC, I was more open to sometimes pulling him up to 5, just because he hypothetically could be the top pick in fantasy again. And there is now there's increased risk on that, and so I'm happy to just take JSN. JSN does not need to score 300 points again. Oh, you're still in my last draft. My bad. That is a real. Let me get this screen shared for you. Appreciate the heads up. I forgot that I opened a second tab there we go. Glad somebody is paying attention. Welcome to the new draft. Pretty standard so far. Though I will say Jefferson pulled up to the 109, and AJ Brown pulled up to the 116. So with that in mind, I might have a better chance of getting something unique to fall back to me. But I think if there's any crazy values, that our friend Mr. Orfield might take them. I think Neil's going to take Brock Bowers. I don't know if he will, but that's what I think is going to happen. Okay, he takes Amari Hampton. Well, then I'm going to take Brock Bowers. Bowers, it's hard to elite tight end is sometimes hard to build, especially with how all of the this is Kalen Black. I actually haven't been looking at I haven't been seeing the preseason scores because I'm 8 for 33. Okay, Stribling, another big night for him so far. Amari Hampton had 1 carry. Keaton Mitchell has a catch. That's kind of fun for those of us who kind of believe in Keaton Mitchell. I draft some Keaton Mitchell. I file Keaton Mitchell under players I'm unwilling to be wrong about. Or unwilling to get, I don't know if wrong about is it Caden or Kalen? I thought it was, I might be, Kalen, yeah. And we are on the clock. I just believe in Zay, so I'm just going to take Zay. That's fine. Considered Devonta Smith, considered Baris, but I think we'll have some running back options we like coming back to us. Don't mind taking a Zay share there. Neil getting really nice price on Trey McBride. So I like what his team's doing. I don't know. Me and Neil are fairly simpatico in a lot of respects. Though Travis Hunter being one that we've kind of diverged on this offseason. I think important in these rooms when you're talking about a higher, a larger buy-in event or a larger buy-in tournament, that you want to watch the board a little more closely. Runs on player groups, I don't want to get so. For instance, we know this guy has 3 running backs here, but honestly, the room has not been as RB heavy as many others are, and I think a lot of that, if I had to guess, rolls back to it being a 4 out of 12 advance out of the first round, so people aren't quite as pressed for RBs. I'm just trying to see who's likely to be there for me. I don't actually know Neil's preferences among the upcoming running backs, assuming that's a direction he considers going in. But I certainly think at least one of my picks at 44 or 53 will be a running back, if not both. Let's see. The other piece being, I know I spoke a couple of times about taking the drafts that have come before me in BBM into consideration. Basically saying like I don't want to be love that Loveland came off the board with me already having an elite tight end. I'm sure Neil was pretty thrilled to see that as well. T-Mac comes off the board. This is going to be Swift for me. Monungai is banged up. I think there's both upside and floor with that play with Swift. Would have considered Scatabo as well, though I haven't been quite as high on him recently. I was very high. It's funny. I anticipated that as he stayed healthy, myself and the field would all get more bullish on him. And so I was taking him a lot in this range. And it seems like it's kind of gone the other way. And it's gone the other way for me as well, which was surprising. Tootin going relatively early. A little disappointing. I would have liked a Tootin share, I think. I generally speaking have a rule for myself against drafting elite QB and elite tight end on the same team. And I would love Lamar because I love Lamar, but I'm going to take Terry McLaurin. Was very tempted by Lamar. I think Judkins would have been a fine selection as well, but and Neil just took him. I think that's a fine pick. Price going very early. Yeah, I'm gonna have to hammer away at running back a little bit if I don't want to get buried. But I have a plan that I think will be okay. So we will see how that plays out. There is always the chance that the running backs get way pushed up and I get kind of buried, which is a little bit worrisome. But I think we'll be able to work around it. It's a sharp room, so that's always concerning. And you couple it being a sharp room with like, I don't love the idea of going to war in like $100 draft with, the Island of Misfit Toys running back room, but sometimes that's how it goes. No risk it, no biscuit. I am a smidge envious of Neil having 2 running backs right now. But I don't know if I don't know if I could go back in time if I would take like Brees anyway. Like I like the players that I've selected. I mean, I wasn't going to pull up when Hampton went off the board. I wasn't pulling him up over Bowers. I guess I could have gone receiver over Bowers, but I don't know. I like this being a Bowers team. I think and I like my receivers. We're fine. Receivers flying off the board, which is honestly a good thing for me. Love to see more receivers off the board after I've taken 3. I don't know what Neil will do here. I sometimes have a gauge on Neil's draft picks. He takes Jalen Warren. I think that's a perfectly justifiable pick. I'm going to take Jaden Daniels. It's kind of what I was thinking when I let it rip with McLaurin. It was kind of like I knew I was going to kind of hate the receivers that would come back. So I could take Lamar, and then it probably would have been, I guess I won't say the other guy's name because he's still available. But for me, it would have been Lamar and a guy that's still available. Well, it would have been Lamar and Ramondre for me. There was probably no chance he was ever coming back to 77. But it would have been Lamar and Ramondre for me had I waited. Blake Corum at 75. Okay, so the running backs, it's getting real frothy at running back. I don't get much Jonathan Brooks these days because I bought all my Jonathan Brooks when he was cheap. I think McGowan over Ollie Gordon is probably pretty sharp. McGowan isn't there other? Who was the other? Isn't he pretty locked in as the RB2 right now on the Colts? I think that's probably pretty good. I wouldn't mind getting a share or two of that guy. I think I taken him in something, but I don't remember what it was. But yeah, he's firmly on the menu, I think. But yeah, I don't get much Brooks anymore. I think the price is. I think we squeezed most of the juice out of that one. Oh, 20th round. Yeah, that seems really good. 1 DK in the 20th. But yeah, I think we squeezed most of the juice out of the Jonathan Brooks value. Love to see it. I love me a Lamar Bateman stack. I really wanted Lamar on this team. Truth serum is not the right phrase, but if you ask me right now, what is something that I'm just going to be sitting in week 3 and wishing I had done more of? And I think one of the things will certainly be, because I like the round 6 quarterback so much, I have had an aversion to pulling up Lamar, or not pulling up Lamar, but selecting Lamar in the 5th, especially on the left side of the board. I take him more frequently on the right side of the board. And so with that, I would say I probably will be regretting how few Lamar shares I have when we get to the season starting. I've fought to keep him to be slightly above Field, but I don't get him enough. I'm at 8.5, 9%. Are you buying the Lane's team? I am certainly curious. I'm a Ravens fan, so I very much hope that he is a smash. But I simultaneously don't know. I think if I had to guess, I would still. And Neil did a really cool show. Neil did a really cool show with Eric Beinfor and Neil. I can't remember who your other co-host is, where they ranked their level of confidence on the wide receiver 2 versus wide receiver 3s in every wide receiver room. And so they broke down all 32 teams and gave basically degrees of confidence, percentage, how confident are they that the wide receiver 3 could outscore the wide receiver 2. And Bill goes, which is a shame. I assumed he was going to go the whole time. But I opted for Mason, who I don't get quite as often. I get a lot of Mason, but I don't. I've been taking more Bill, and so I was excited to get a Mason share. But I think either of those guys would have been fine. Feeling a smidge squeamish. God, I want to take Trevor. Well, this is so stupid. I want to take Trevor Lawrence, but I don't want 2 week 7 buys. But that's who I want. Put him in the queue. I mean, this is just a stupid value. Am I willing to take a 0 in a? Yeah, I probably am. Whatever. All right. Yeah, Lamar so damn new. Have a good. Yeah, I think they will. I'm bullish. I think everyone in that offense just seems so happy. Now, I will say the reports have been that they're starting a little slow in those joint practices. I know that the Vikings defense was kind of having the way with the offensive line today, so that's never ideal. Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar has as much upside as anyone. I wish he was a little cheaper, but I think his price is fair. It's hard because his price is fair as the QB2, but then I think there's a big teardrop in both running back, in terms of both running back and wide receiver. That happens if you, in terms of running back and wide receiver, that happens if you take him in the 5th, and then by the time you're on the clock again. So it's hard. Love Daniels, not confident in the head coach. Still draft Daniels and McLaurin a bunch, just no super. Yeah, Dan Quinn, not ideal, but who was there? Is it David Blau? Who's the OC? Yeah, David Blau replacing Kingsbury. I think could be bullish. It sounded like, was it Detroit who had interest in bringing him back potentially, and because the Commanders moved so quickly, they didn't get the opportunity to do that. But I think there could be maybe a little bit more innovation. My greatest frustration with Cliff was always that he just refused to use McLaurin in interesting ways. So I was hoping that, though we did have a smash season with him a couple of years ago when he just ran really hot on touchdowns, but yeah, I mean, that offense goes as Jaden Daniels goes. So I have faith in Jaden Daniels. I think he's very talented. I can't believe I took Lawrence at 1. It's just like the Brooks pick. If I could go back in time, I probably should have taken Rico Dowdle at 77, because that would have enabled me to potentially take a falling Chuba Hubbard if I wanted to, which I would have maybe had interest in at 101. But I'm okay with Mason and Swift. We're going to need more in terms of running backs. We probably only need 2 tight ends, though. We have strong receivers up top that maybe we could go a 3rd quarterback, or I can just eat the week. I'm open to both. In a 4 advance, I think it's also possible that just those 2 score enough points between the 2 of them that we get the job done. I'm pretty high on both Lawrence and Daniels. So we'll see what's going on this board. Okay, there's some clear guys that I want. Tyson's still sticking around at 116. Kind of been talking about him throughout the days here. I don't love Jacoby Myers. You know what? I'm gonna hedge on all of my Beischel Tootin bags, and I'm gonna take Chris Rodriguez here. Yeah. I just can't bring myself to click Jacoby Myers at ADP. I know that I don't have a stack for Lawrence. I mean, I guess Rodriguez is hypothetically a stack, but he doesn't catch passes. But I needed a running back who can hypothetically be playing out of the gate. I think that gives me a 4th one I feel more confident in. I was interested in Aaron Jones as well, and just locking up both of the Vikings RBs, but I was more interested in Rodriguez. Also, given that I'm betting on this Commanders-Jaguars game in Week 17, might as well stack it up. Would have really liked Stribling here. That seems kind of fun. Oh, man. Tough room. I liked Kincaid. That was something I had some interest in. I like Debo. I'm going to take one more Debo share. Again, less incentivized to do this in BBM, more incentivized to maybe bet on Debo in the 120s and just see what happens. I pretty indifferent on if I was going to take him or Coker there, but maybe Neil will take Coker. You know, he's a fan. Yeah, he did. So, Neil, you can thank me later. Gotcha. No, yeah, I mean, there's still obviously outs where Travis Hunter can easily. Yeah, I follow what you were saying. Not Hunter, not Lawrence. But I struggle with the bet to begin with, and then I struggle more with it now. But obviously, like they're one injury because I also don't know. He can obviously have some spike weeks when they use him if they decide to scheme him open. But if he's really going to be their cornerback one, I don't even know if he's like one injury away from a full complement of snaps. If just they defensively decide they really want him play, like corners don't tend to leave the field. So if he's really going to be the CB1 there, he's probably going to play 100% of, or damn near 100% of snaps on defense. Now maybe they find ways to protect him in some clear running situations. I don't know, but like usually your top corners are just out there. But I just took an unstacked. I just took an unstacked Trevor Lawrence, so maybe I will find my way into a share as we work through this process. It was a much bigger fall for Tyson here, which probably makes sense given the format. But 129. If he was at 129 in BBMs, I would be pretty interested, I think. Goddard, a lot of tight ends coming off the board, not something I'm hating with my list of players available. Don't know what Neil wants, but I'm sure he'll take whatever it is that I want. I'm pretty set on two players here. So we'll see. I'm going to get one of them, but I probably have a preference. I don't know. What are you doing, Neil? Okay, that is not what I was going to take. So not that I don't hate it, but I'm going to take Jonah Coleman. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Potentially. What I will say though is that like I understand that Hunter wants to play both ways. Who did you try and swap your pick to? Was it to Jonah Coleman or was it or do you want to keep that? You can keep that to yourself if the person is still on the board. But I really wanted. I was Coleman or Boston there. Bigsby goes. Oh. Do we want Marshawn Lloyd or Spears? Heart versus head. I'm thinking Lloyd. Whatever. We can dream. Yeah, I would have. I liked Boston there. Gotcha. Always good to know where the sidekick is at on Keenan. I know they were very in on him when he was in the 18th, and I was as well, courtesy of friend of the channel, Emo Cowboy, kind of talking him up to me after our matchup on Best Ball Jeopardy. I ended up talking to Emo a lot about Keenan, and he sold me on making the click, which I'm glad I did in hindsight. But it was a nerve-wracking couple of days there where it wasn't sure. I'm fairly happy with how this running back room turned out. I don't know if I love Lloyd at 150, but that's probably about fair market value, and at least this is a contest where nobody was getting him cheap. I have some choices to make down the stretch, but I like how this team is going. I was a little worried about the running backs, but I think with Rodriguez, who's going to play early, at least some, with Mason and Swift, we've got enough there, I think. It will need some things to break right, certainly. We did not go with but that's the price you pay when you end up with an elite QB and an elite tight end and another QB at pick 101. You're gonna have to make some concessions, especially in an RB hungry room. And honestly, if Mike Washington is going to go at this pick, I almost think I should have just taken Charbonnet. I don't know. Travis Hunter's gone. Lane is gone. Harris is gone. A lot of the flavor of the week guys making their way off the board. I think I might be getting burned by the kick shortly here. Although I don't actually know who the kick prefers. Okay, you took Terrence Ferguson. That's not who I was going to take. I want Pat Bryant. I figured as much. They're not as bullish as the rest of the slappies, right? They're a little. I think they're a little more out on. They're a little more out on T-Ferg than the rest of the crew. Is that correct? I feel like he's one. I listened to Pat and Shady did a mailbag, whatever they do, like his top click Tuesday thing. And I listened to that on my flight yesterday. And I thought that was really good. I like listening to, I do really like, it's fun. I know we talk about the Sims a fair bit, but I do really like listening to those guys talk through their process, whether it be on how they constructed the Sims vaguely or, how, player takes and how they're approaching steaming news and what have you. I don't know. Are we daring to dream with Cyrus Allen? Sure. $100 share of Cyrus Allen. Sure. We'll take it. I mean, if he keeps steaming up, he's probably going ahead of ADP in a lot of these rooms, maybe. I don't know. I mean, we're going to be, I need a second tight end. It's going to be at least a seventh receiver. And then we decide if we want the third quarterback or not. Neil, we always know you're human. So Gino is still available. I think I'm eating this. I think I'm going to eat. Cam. Oh, can't. Okay, you're typing. Yeah, I thought you and the kick were friends, Neil. God damn it. The guy I want. Neil, how stupid am I for eating a 0 at quarterback in a draft like this? I think I'm going to eat the 0 in week 7. I really do. It's going to be so frustrating if I miss this advancement, though. Yeah, I know. It's 4 of 12. I mean, I do it in 2 of 12 every now and again. I'm not like completely afraid of it. It's because it just is what it is. But I wouldn't usually in this circumstance, but I also kind of think I need. Damn it! I really wanted Freiermuth. This is just not going the way that I want it to. All right. Gunnar Helm, come on down. I guess I hypothetically in this one could have also. Well, yeah, and Gino is gone now. I don't even know if there is a QB that I can get that's going to be playing in week 7. And maybe Tua. But I'm not sold on that. Yeah, I don't think we have a choice. I think we have to eat it, which is fine. I mean, if Daniels and Trevor Lawrence both have good years, that will be okay. But I'm certainly leaving some percentile chance of advancing on the table here. I didn't even stack the Lawrence. Maybe the Lawrence pick was stupid. What could I have done instead? Oh, I hated all the other options. I mean, I guess I could have taken like Michael Wilson and just like, I don't know. I will take Malachi Fields. Neil taking Kamara. My favorite game to play with Neil is, was that a human pick or was that a robot pick? I'm going to bet both, maybe. Neil needed a 5th running back. That seems 198 seems fair. I mean, I know he's banged up, but it still seems fair. How many do have a handful of people still here? Sorry, I've been a little more just locked into the draft. For everyone, 1, I've been up for a long time at this point, and then 2, I'm trying to focus a little bit. I don't mind having shares of all these guys. Yeah. 5th inside pick. That sounds right. Neil, there is. I'm gonna star the player I'm considering. I was sitting here thinking about how there aren't any players available who will be starting in week 7. This is my first one of this set of them, so I'm excited to draft the other 2. I think, should I draft Kirk Cousins? Maybe I should. I haven't drafted him all year. I tend to think they're just full of it when they say that he's going to. I could take Chris Bell. Everyone keeps saying that. What is the? Okay, who did the Raiders? Okay. So I could take him, but they're playing the Rams that week. So like, I'm getting the points that Kirk Cousins puts up against the Rams. Fuck it. You know what? I don't know what else to do. We're just going to take Kirk. Maybe the Rams are blowing them out, and Kirk is slinging it in his final attempt at doing this. You don't need the nuts in this contest to win. The final is, what is the final here? The final in the Dalmatian is only 23 people. So you don't need the nuts. I think Kirk probably increased my odds of advancing more than certainly more than Chris Bell or Cooper Kupp, I think. So I am okay with it. I don't know how much Kirk Cousins is going to be running around in this contest, nor do I expect him to be scoring for me in the weeks that matter. But I picked Kirk Cousins for the first time this summer in a $101 draft. One, I really appreciate you saying that. I've been streaming on Neil's. This is Neil's channel, so if you aren't too familiar with the Flannelverse, Neil Orfield is mostly putting out the content. Okay, I watched Neil for Neil stuff. There's a couple of weeks. So Neil has a couple of shows that run weekly. I think mostly during the day. Neil, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mostly during the day. You have a podcast that you record weekly, and then you have another couple shows that you've been working on, in addition to doing, I think, just some streamed drafts. I have been streaming mostly on Thursdays for a couple of weeks now with Neil. Neil is going to be putting out a lot of content from now until the end of the NFL season. I've mostly been streaming once a week with Neil, but Neil open to doing potentially some more stuff. We can talk about it, but I will at minimum be streaming once a week. I am actually out of pocket next week, so I don't think I'm going to be able to stream during the week, but I might be able to find some other time I can stream. Maybe I'll do a weekend stream or something to make up for it. But I will see. But I should be streaming on here with Neil at least until the end of the draft season. I cannot remember who is the guy who wanted to see the Pitbull team still in chat. I don't know if I can tell who's actually still here. I'm happy to bring it up, but if not, I can just do that another time. I'm not really. Honestly, I think we went through the team, but I'll just quickly recap where I'm at, and then I'll get out of here. You are here. Okay, cool. So I will show you the team. Yeah, thanks for sticking around. Yeah. No way to see us here. Perfect. Well, I will. Let me find that for you right now. I'll pull it up. Best ball. Pitbull winning team. We have it here. It's actually a fun one. And then image file. Share screen. Is it this? How do I share this thing? Here we go. Does this work? Yeah, that works. I don't know how easy that is to see. I think it's fairly easy to see. So the first thing I will say, when I zoom in, you can't see Isaiah Likely. So I'm going to zoom in shortly. We can pop back out for likely. So this was my team that won. Was a Lamar Dak team, so went pretty close to double elite QB that year. Lamar was obviously early, and then Dak was still a pretty early pick. Gibbs, I think, was round 3. Walker was like round 5. And then the big leverage that I had on most of the field was that I went CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams at the turn when most people were taking Amon-Ra with Lamb, including the guy who won BBM. So you didn't need Adams, but Adams and Lamb were the 2 highest scorers in week 17. George Pickens also scored in that lineup. George Pickens also dropped a 30 bomb in week 16. So he is a lot of the reason that I was able to advance and get to the finals. And then down here at the bottom, weirdly had a 4 tight end team here. So thank you. Yeah. It was a good win. This was 2023. Neil has had some very big ones as well. I'm a one-trick pony with this one. But yeah, it was a 4 tight end team where Dawson Knox. It's funny because Dawson Knox was my second tight end scored and basically scored no points that year. Shaheed was a pretty good hit, I think. Likely did very little for the year, but ended up scoring 2 touchdowns in week 17. So he scored 17 points there. So he was I needed that 4th tight end to get there. Just showing you the other thing, like when you look at a small field contest like this was like, I think like 30 people in the final or something like that. So kind of similar to this Dalmatian, because this was a $75 entry when I won it. I had Jake Ferguson score with 5 points, and he hit my lineup that week. And Rashad White was my RB2 for 6.5. And both of those guys scored because I happened to have 30 plus from Lamar, Lamb, and Adams. Obviously, this score was not good enough to, I don't know if you need to switch up your builds more, but in this one, I vividly remember drafting this team, which is kind of funny. And I got sniped on whoever I wanted. And realized that Odell was my only Lamar stack, so I just threw likely on there. Odell had a pretty weak year, so I didn't have a lot of hits. And then Neil's favorite, DJ Chark, who Neil and I were both very high on this year. Yeah, I didn't do it a ton, but that's kind of fun. I've actually done it more this year. I think intuitively it's felt pretty good. Ahead of the pack. I'll take some credit on that, but not, it seemed fine at the time. And I think also, right, like you didn't need the nuts in this contest to win. But yeah, me and Neil's friend, DJ Chark, he didn't score in the final week, but he did score. I have let me find it. I can pull up the week before to add insult to injury for Neil. Because I know he has a lot of lingering DJ Chark Pitbull finals. I think this is it right here. So this is the week before when it made the finals. So this is what I needed to get through. And DJ Chark dropped 24.8 points in week 16 after basically doing nothing all year. So, I needed Devontae in week 17 with 30. But it was Pickens with 30 in week 16. CD was good both weeks. Chark absolutely nuked week 16 just randomly for 25 points. And Rashid Shaheed helped get there for 16. And then again, Schultz, who didn't score in week 17, was there. So we needed every one of those 4 tight ends. I will say I did clear I did clear, I think, the other teams in this pod by a decent clip when I scored 167. So it wasn't like I needed necessarily all of this. But again, Kenneth Walker was my highest scored running back in week 17. It was Gibbs and White in week 16. Lamar both times. But in week 15, Dak popped off. So Lamar didn't score all 3 weeks for me. It's just it's interesting to see how things ping pong to make things work. The other, I guess, last point I'll just make on this team is that Jahan Dotson was terrible. So he was basically a 0 all year. Odell was terrible. He's basically a 0 all year. DJ Chark was terrible, basically a 0 all year. Knox obviously did very little. Raheem Mostert carried the team. And that year, Raheem Mostert was RB2 overall after being a later pick, and he led the NFL in touchdowns. So he did a lot of the heavy work in the regular season, and then he got hurt and didn't play in any of the weeks that matter really. So he was completely useless to me, but he did help carry this team to get there. Tank Bigsby scored like no points. This was basically a 4 running back team the entire time. And so I think just like the major takeaways from that is that you are going to need the guys that hit when it matters. I needed Devontae. I needed CeeDee Lamb. I needed Isaiah Likely. But at the same time, you can carry some zeros. And so my takeaway from that is just that when you feel bad because you have a team that has Ricky Pearsall on it, or you feel bad because you have a team with Jaden Higgins, like it is totally possible to win a tournament with a zero with a player like Jaden Higgins that you picked at 120. Like you can, your other receivers can get you there. Obviously, nobody wants zeros, and there's a pretty big correlation between winning money in this game and not having zeros. But proof is in the pudding. You can absolutely win a contest with one of your guys or two of your guys or three of your guys not really contributing. Your hits matter a lot more than your misses. McDaniel had those running backs cooking. I had a lot of Achane and Mostert that year. They both they put up like 80 points on the Broncos, and everybody was calling them like the greatest show on surf that year. Yeah, I mean, I empathize. Like I was above the field on Brazel when he went down. I'm thankfully a little lighter on Pearsall and Higgins, and I mean he's not out for the year, but also on what's his name from the Saints. But I just like Tyson from the Saints, but it's just there's more injuries that are going to come. I mean the other piece is like I drafted I was like 30% James Conner last year in BBM, so he was my most drafted player, and he blew his knee out in like week 5. And I still advanced more BBMs than expectation. Like I still advanced like 20% of my BBMs. So you can get there in a wide variety of ways. Try not to beat yourself up over injuries. But that being said, yeah, DJ Chark, the ultimate throwback. Me and Neil, I've tweeted DJ Chark things at Neil a number of times. I will probably not do that anymore because he's retired. But I enjoyed this little walk down memory lane. The sweat was super fun. I am hoping to have another one of these eventually. I think that, you never know. Like you never know which team is going to get you there. We all draft a lot of them. So appreciate everyone who came out and watched the stream tonight. It was fun drafting with Neil and a number of you in these rooms. I will be in them again, and I will definitely be doing at least a couple more streams on this channel before the end of draft season. So enjoy your drafts. Have a good one, everybody.